Andrew was just saying he hopes you're saying good things about Collab Lab on Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. So I look around nervously. Okay. Yeah, we me and Mike had a story 9, and the story says, as a user, I want to mark an item already on my shopping list as purchased. I'm just going to read over the AC real quick. So it says user is able to tap a checkbox or similar UI element to mark an item as purchased. So the way we set that up is, let me just pull up the code really quickly. In the list context.js, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong stuff here. So we came up with this function here. Let me close this out. So I don't. And so pretty much what this is doing is it records the last date purchase whenever the item is checked, and it sends that date over to Firebase so that it shows up in that field there. And if y'all don't mind, I'm gonna give you an example really quickly. It will let me, I hope so. I'm just gonna restart this. I'm just gonna randomly add an item. I don't know. Oh, hurts. Let's see. And then you see it's in the list. And then if you pull up Firebase, you'll see that it shows the date and the time as well. My apologies, my computer is running super slow.
Monica, you can even just refresh your browser with the app and just showing that it's persisted. That would work too.
Okay. I'll do that for right now because this is just like not. Yep. And see, it's still checked. So
That's.
So the other part of it was it should be shown as checked for 24 hours. And that's the function that me and Andrew worked on together. Because we were having a really hard time trying to figure out like exactly what the logic's supposed to look like. So this is what we came up with. And we used the day.js library to be able to like record that date of purchase. And this is just pretty much saying that if it's been more than 24 hours from the time that the item was purchased, that you can go ahead, it unchecks it automatically. So that's where this kind of comes in.
Yeah.
And I hope that made sense. I'm sorry. If y'all have any questions or anything, just, feel free to throw them at me.
Yeah, I can chime in. So the thing that was challenging for us when we were coding was like, how do we like attach that time to the existing database? And I should have looked more in depth of the documents, and it's .set. But then like the next question I had was, okay, how do we choose that item? And I thought like, it would just get an item ID, but I didn't know how to code that. I didn't realize it was just like a simple fix of just calling it item.id. So that kind of like opened the door on things. And then Steve, thank you again for like, like here's a working piece. Before you even try looking at this, try it yourself. And like the pointers that he gave me made it easier for me to like, okay, like this is what I need. And that helped me out. And then like towards the end when there were still bugs, I checked his code and realized it was similar. But then we had a problem of getting that checkbox opening, and I copied and pasted some of his code to see since his is working correctly and I wasn't, just to make sure. And I realized I just forgot to like restart the app locally again, and it started working again. So that was a silly mistake too on my end.
And this syntax there with the three dots before item on line 59, I learned that somewhere, but I've already forgot what it means. It's something with slicing the array, but
did you want to explain, Mike?
Oh no, go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say it's called a spread operator, and it just takes the object and just spreads all of the fields into that new object.
Yeah, I just didn't know how to say it, but exactly what Steve said.
Yeah, it takes all the properties and values, and then in this case, it would add last date purchased as another property, and then combine all that into one object.
Yeah, it's a really easy way to
ES6,
kind of
right?
a quick way to like clone objects and create new objects from existing ones.
basically you take the existing JSON and just tack on the last date purchased. That's the effect of this.
Yep.
Cool.
I'm sorry to unmute myself. So I think that's pretty much the long and short of what we needed to do. Just to record the date that was purchased, make sure that it stayed checked for at least 24 hours. And then after that 24 hours, just kind of have some logic in place that just unchecks it automatically. So we were able to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's awesome.
How did you test the 24 hours part? Because I know when I was trying to do it, I started modifying the ticks value in the database, and it was a little felt a little hacky, but maybe that was the best way to do it.
Yeah, that's how I did it. Was just basically went on Firebase and changed the integer to see if it's more than 24 hours, and it worked. It was a little tacky, but that's all I could think of about doing it. I don't know if there was another way of doing it.
It'd be hard with time like that to test it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How would have you tested it, Steve, if you were to test this? Or how did you test it?
I would have just tested the function that checks to see if it's should be checked or not. Probably just made that a utility function and then unit test that. I think that would have, for me, that would have sufficed. Because otherwise you get into some crazy mocking scenarios.
Which I did.
Yeah, what I liked about the work this week was that you had a lot of kind of small single responsibility functions, and that's really nice. It like makes the, if you were to add tests to this, it makes it a lot easier to test. It makes it a lot easier to kind of understand the flow of the program and stuff too, because you can say like, oh, here's this thing that calculates the date, and you can isolate that and say like, oh yeah, that works correctly. So if there's a problem, it must be somewhere else. Like helps you kind of just like understand and debug what's going on.
Yeah. I felt like this week was a little bit easier because it was very segmented. It was easy to break things apart. And then so I can we can focus on like a specific problem instead of like trying to figure out the whole overall problem or why it wasn't working. So this was like a really great learning lesson this week.
Good.
Maybe you guys were just better at dividing it too.
Thanks, Lars.
It's an upward trajectory.
Yeah, for sure. Nice work, Monica, this week.
Thank you. Let me stop my share.
Really good job.
Yeah. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, Nikema and Amber.
I can try to talk for a minute. I just wanted to say, I feel really bad, Amber, because I feel like we got together at the beginning of the week, and then I went to work on the token, and we didn't kind of connect much after that.
Mm.
So, I didn't mean to, take over so much of what I did.
Oh, no. I mean, it just happened to me. I also, along with this week, I had signed up for something similar to Collab Lab called Chingu. So we started our first proper week over there. So I unfortunately just didn't do the best of managing my time, because my idea behind doing both was I could like make it into blog posts, because like people are really like, you need to increase your footprint online and make blog posts. So I was gonna like compare the two as I went through it. And this first week was just a little rough because we're just doing different things over there and building a like what feels like a more robust app, but it shouldn't be because it's the same time frame. And I just like got sucked into that a lot. So it was definitely on my end as well, not communicating. So I'm sorry about that as well. Like,
Okay, I felt that, but I was like, does she think
we both accidentally dropped the ball
Okay.
for
All
like
right.
a swath of time.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to like air that out. And at the beginning of the week, there were still like some overlap from the previous stories. So like we had to get something organized with the token, the way the token is handled. So that took up a lot of what I personally did this week. And I feel like it really all just came together like a few minutes ago. So I don't know, I guess we can demo. So here's our pull request.
That may be a new record in terms of commits.
And you know what? I still didn't commit enough. Like there were some big chunks I didn't commit. Okay, so our story was to create a welcoming prompt if you don't have a list, and show the list if there is one saved. A million commits. Oh, I guess I'm looking for the demo, but it's in master, right?
Yeah, we've already merged.
Yeah, it should be deployed now.
Yeah.
And I will say, when you do learn about rebasing and squashing your commits, you'll be like, whoa. Oh.
Project brief there, Nikima, and then you'll find the link if you don't have it already.
Oh, okay. That's what I was looking for. Project brief.
It's one of the files in the. Yeah,
I had those things pinned, and then I guess Firefox just did not pin things anymore. Okay. Oh.
I love that button.
So there's no list, I guess, because if I had one, it would show up. So I'm going to create one, and it takes me to the empty list view. That was one thing that I changed, because I think in the previous week when there was no list, it showed, hey, there's no list, go back home and try again. So this is an empty list. I'm gonna add eggs, I'd assume. Checkbox from the other pair is there. And now if I close it, let's see. Okay, open a new one. Okay, is my list there? Okay, yeah, so that's a bug. So it's supposed to show the list when you go to the home page. And like for a moment while it's loading and finding it, like the welcome screen shows.
Yeah, I mean, network connections take, they take half a second or something. I think that's not the end of the world, but yeah, I'm really impressed just how, like, I went away to do that kickoff for TCL 4 and came back, and there's this whole thread, and you basically, like, it's all merged, and I'm like, wow, all right, that was amazing. It's like flurry of activity at the end.
So good, great job.
Yep.
A lot of good cleanup this week. That's my impression, with a lot of stuff I didn't quite follow with context and everything, but it seemed like there was some real good effort done in cleaning up and really making the app more maintainable in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, I thought this was good for kind of talking more about technical debt and kind of weighing the trade-offs of addressing all of the wrongs that you want to right in one go, and also just shipping workable features. So this was a good lesson, I think, in learning those trade-offs, or just kind of playing with those more.
Oh, I just want to say one more thing. React has been killing me. I think this is going to be like the big lesson that I take from the Collab Lab is like, how do I like not be writing these things that render endlessly? Like every week, almost every week, it's an issue. It's like I still haven't learned, but I think I'm learning. So
for me, I think it's a hooks thing. Like without hooks, when you were just like, just organizing your code, we only need like drill down one level. I was like, all right, I got it. But for some reason, me and hooks, we're gonna get along eventually, but we're not getting along right now.
That really honestly is the trick, is knowing that when you're using hooks and you're using component functions, that any function call in there is getting executed with each render. And so if one of those functions calls a function somewhere else that could trigger a loop, then that's what was happening with the network requests, was that we were setting something up in state and calling that function to initialize state, but the function was being called in line there rather than having a callback function.
I learned one thing too that I just learned last night, and that's like my idea of things being equal. Like this array hasn't changed in my head, but JavaScript doesn't see it that way. So that's why it's going to keep re-rendering, because I said, oh, nothing changed, it shouldn't re-render. But that array is not equal to the one it's being compared to, even though they look the same. So that was something that I had to learn that was not intuitive, that I had to like research.
Equality is not, that's always hard, any language. And some languages you have 3 equal signs for some reason.
Yeah, I was just studying hooks yesterday. I'm trying to I need to really get on this hooks train, and it looked like in the use state hook that it's like a new thing every time. Like you're not merging state with something that's already existing. So any array is going to be a new thing to JavaScript, right? Like you're not going to compare those to a previous instance of it. So I don't know if that's what you were running into, but that's
I think you were
pretty tricky.
Well, I think you were getting to it, Nikima, because I saw you use callback, which is going to return a memoized version of whatever function you pass in. So that's where you're getting the same one every time, unless a dependency of that memoized function changes. But I think we can usually get around that by just kind of lifting state further up into the tree, and then you're always using that state to pass down and decide when to render or not. But it was good work. There was a lot of perseverance. So that was good on you for just like researching that and digging into the hooks.
Thank you. Yeah, I ran out of time before everything could be addressed, but I think the critical bugs are fixed.
Good job.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to our retro. So I just dropped the link in the chat. Kind of the same thing we do every other week is go through and talk about appreciations, what went well and what could be improved. So let's take like 5 minutes and just jot down appreciations, and we'll go through those.
I believe it's week 6 already.
It's flying by.
Or end of week 6. Yeah.
I'll just give it about another minute or two.
I generated a random order, if that's helpful.
Oh, did you put them in the order, or
I just
did you just
posted
paste that down? Oh, I see.
Sorry, Amber, you're gonna have to go first.
All right, cool. So for
Well,
appreciations.
I think we're sorry.
Oh,
We're not quite
sorry,
ready to go start,
my
but
bad.
I just meant that the random order generator put you first. So
I'm just reordering these now. I think, is everybody done? Think so? All right, let's go through. We'll start with Amber for appreciations.
Okay, so appreciations, mentors in general, especially over the past 2 weeks for helping out, but specifically Steve and Andrew for near the end today. We are kind of under the wire, but we got it done. I really appreciate you guys coming in and giving advice slash like easiness towards better solutions, which is always good as you're building. And what else is there? Oh yes, and definitely for Nikima for figuring out context and stuff for like the entire getting us more centralized so we can have like one spot to access all of our data like within the app, which is always good. So yeah, those are things.
cool. Yeah, thanks, Steve, again this week for providing such great feedback and guidance. Really good at your job. And then Monica was just really wanted to kind of shout out to you for being noisy about needing help. It was really fun to get a chance to pair with you and kind of talk through some stuff. So it's good.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. I learned a lot. I really did.
Yeah.
I appreciate your help.
Of course, yeah.
Cool. Mike.
Yeah, I think last week the perseverance with the team, just trying to get those stories done that took almost 2 weeks. It showed that we really want to accomplish this, and we all work together. So that was really great, and inspired by that. And this week, like the mentors, I realized how amazing it is to be really loud through Slack and really thinking the thought process and made everything so much easier and really better to understand like what I was working on. So thank you for that.
Cool. Go over to Nikima.
Oh yeah, I wanted to thank Steve for the really detailed kind of code reviews. I wrote about it in my blog, but it feels good to have this space to try to work things out on your own, but also to know that, hey, there's someone who actually might have an answer and you don't just give it to us. So I appreciate that. And this was more recent, but this week I noticed that Mike started a mega thread on what he was working on at the time, and I thought that was really cool to see, because it's good to overhear what the other pair is working on, and we are still on the same team, so it's relevant to my interests. So it's nice to be able to see that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I also thought that was great. For me, it was Nikima, Amber, Monica, and Mike. All four of you worked really hard to learn some new concepts and some things that weren't easy. Like hooks are not very intuitive, especially coming from class components. So it's been great work just seeing you all jump in there and really work that stuff out. And then Lars and Andrew for jumping in when I was on dad duty this week, and I'd taken the week off from Zapier just to kind of recover from a 20-hour travel sojourn back to Australia. So thank you both for that. And let's hop down to Monica.
Hey, just wanted to, kind of shout out really everybody, the mentors, first of all, for just, being flexible and just wanting to look over everything we're working on and just kind of helping us to untangle the logic that we were, working towards. And just, I really appreciate the help with that. Y'all were like super loud and just really just available to us. Mike, for sure, just really appreciate just you being super organized. Like you're always like really organized, and it makes it really simpler to like map out the week and break down the tasks. And that's like really important for me, especially because I tend to freak out and get overwhelmed easily. So that helps a lot. Just want to thank everybody for just being supportive.
Cool. And then to Lars.
Yeah. Again, thanks to Nikima for that cleanup that I don't really completely follow. I kind of understand it, but not completely. But I understand it was good to kind of centralize some of that logic. And then thanks to both Steven and Andrew for helping out this week. A lot of that was around context and a little more React and nuance that I'm able to really help a lot with. So I really appreciate that.
Cool. Let's jump over to what went well. Starting back up with Amber.
Yeah, so what went well for us this week and last week? Well, actually, mostly this week, my bad. But once again, it's just like Nikima and I getting all of our work in. Like, I think it went really well because like we were saying before, life got in the way. We kind of both like didn't communicate as we should throughout the week, but it's good that, we were still doing work. So when we got together, the work still got done. So that was always really good. And I put the same thing twice, Jesus. But yeah, pretty much about just getting like everything organized with context because it's bad to prop drill and all of those things. And yeah, I think that was a really big step towards like just nailing down the last big like architecture aspect of the app. So I think it's a really big step.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everyone got their work done, so that's great. That's amazing. So that's huge. And then that's really like I'm really starting to notice like improvements in how y'all are structuring your code and things like breaking things down into small functions or just like Nikima, all that work you did around like the list context. It really shows that you all are just kind of going deeper in your knowledge of React and everything. So I thought that was great. I mean, we're here to teach collaboration, but you can see that you're also just improving in your knowledge of React and coding in general. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, I think for me, it was compared to the last couple of weeks, it's understanding how to break down stories a little bit more. Realizing like, those small wins really help out a lot. You feel inspired and motivated to continue pushing instead of like being blank. And then really what was like, the focus on like being loud in Slack and just loud with my partner, Monica. Like it was like awesome that you reached out to Andrew to get that like to help us out, and that really kind of like helped me out with my code when I had to like look at it too. So thank you for that.
Cool. Over to Nikima.
Yeah, I kind of said it in the appreciations, but like I felt like the Slack communications was nice. And yeah, especially this last week. The week before was kind of weird, but like a lot of our mentors were doing their thing. So yeah, I think like the Slack communication has gone well. And Stacy suggested that we try using the issues instead of a wiki for like the written planning and documentation, and I felt like that's more intuitive for me, and I like that when I link to a commit or the PR, like it's all like in the same place. So with the wikis, I had to do that manually. So I'm saying I like using that more than wikis.
Cool. And then for me, yeah, great teamwork from everybody, especially, I think we've said it a number of times now, especially at the end and that big push to get everything out. That was really great to see. I mentioned it already, but love the perseverance of diving into documentation and really, really working to get the information and the knowledge you needed to go through and write out components in context, or using hooks, or even getting documentation in Firebase. Like it was great to see that independence to go out and get the information you needed and ask questions as well, so that you weren't spinning your wheels for too long. So I thought that was really great. And yeah, keep asking more and earlier. So over to Monica.
So as far as what I feel went well, just to kind of reiterate the note said, just being loud in Slack. I've noticed that a lot from all of us, and I just feel like it was, again, just really helpful to kind of have everybody available to bounce ideas off of and just kind of see what's going on with everybody. So I feel like that went really well. And then to just Mike being really willing to push us to meet a lot. Cause I think that we had like maybe like 5 pairs this week, pretty much like just about every day. And for me, I think that was great because it kept me focused. It kept me in the code on a daily basis. So I feel like that went really well. And I feel like that's something that I would like to continue doing in the future, just have something going on like a daily basis or every other day at least. So that way things don't get lost or forgotten or anything like that. So I think that went great.
Yeah, consistency is the way to go. Yeah, and Lars.
Yeah, I agree with the frequent updates. It was fun. It was really nice to be able to check, like find a branch, like either of the team's branches, and check them out and see where things were at. Like that's really cool. Not sort of what's going on. Hopefully things are progressing, but I have no way of knowing. It was really nice both to see the chat around it, but also that work was checked in and I could see where things were at, and that was really cool. So yeah, I think both stores finished like everyone said, so that's great. So yeah, I saw a lot more noise, questions, communication. That was great. And on top of that, it wasn't just sort of random text that I saw. It was also like good intentions, and I saw a lot of like positive, like everyone wanting to make things better and wanting to learn and make the app work. And I thought that was really cool. Especially these 2 stores, I felt like there was a bit of restructuring going on, and I feel like we could have had a lot of merge conflict. There were some, but I feel like that was worked out pretty well as well. The daily updates from Mike were super helpful, just seeing sort of things are happening, there's some progress being made. And like Nikima called out, the discussion in the issue there seemed to work nicely as well. With you can sort of follow it along right where the issue is instead of having to find the associated wiki article. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, like you said, lots of great things to mention. And then what could be improved? Start again with Amber.
Sorry. But it's pretty much just like what I say every week, because like it's really hard to overdo it, but just even though we are clearly doing really well with communication and we do continue to do better, it's hard to over communicate, so it's probably always something that can be improved upon. And for me personally, just because I know like ultimately I'm in my career going to be on like a team where there's like multiple small projects, like that's probably just like a way of life. I would like to get better at just managing myself. I was thinking of coming at it from an aspect of like as if I'm my own project manager for my life, which I guess is probably the way I should have been coming at it anyway. So if there's any like project management tips or books that you guys could lead me to, that's what I want to like improve on for myself personally.
Yeah, that's great. You know, Stacy was a project manager, product manager in a former life, so you could ask her for some resources. She's shared some of those out before, so that's great. Yeah, the Hakeem and Amber, your work came in a little hot. I was a little worried there about 2 hours ago, but you all pulled it off, which means that you were actually probably a little further along than it seemed. And so it was just kind of like a last push with kind of Steve, a little guidance from Steve, and you all managed to pull it off. So that's good. You know, ideally we're kind of getting things done, you know, sort of a full day ahead of time, so we have time to, you know, not feel rushed trying to get, you know, incorporate changes and stuff. But you know, we did manage to pull it off. So.
I think for me, I could have saved a lot more time if I really understood the story. I know like midweek, I was like, wait, are we supposed to add the purchase date when we add the item or when they click the checkbox? And like, I didn't necessarily waste time, but it was more like, oh, this could have been like, you know, thought of before, and I could have had a better process of doing this. So, you know, doing that, less assuming, and, you know, continue being vocal is kind of the key for that. So we'll work on that next week.
What did I have? Oh, so, oh, were you done? Okay. Oh, communication, like between the pairs. I felt like and it's kind of been since the beginning, but I think it's one project and we're split into pairs working each week, but it feels like we're like doing separate things. And like there are times when it would be good to come together, like, oh, hey, how are you saving the token in the database? It's like, okay, so I'll match what you're doing so that there's not a conflict at the end. And this week, I asked for a review for our pull request, and it didn't get reviewed for a while. So I never actually asked for the mentor review. So yeah, that was just like my overall what I think could be improved is like more communication, especially when it's like maybe unclear what the other team is doing that you're going to need to implement in your, or the other pair is doing that you're going to need to implement.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even add too, like if I ask for a PR and I don't get a response in a day, then usually I'll ping in Slack and just say, hey, just in case you missed it or anything, like, again, just always being noisy. And even coming back to one thing Mike had said with making assumptions, like when I'm going through tickets and I'm assigned a feature or something like that, if there's anything that isn't crystal clear to me, when I read through that ticket, I'm asking a product manager, I'm asking a designer, I'm talking to somebody, and getting that communication happening as early as possible for the exact reasons you're talking about. But for me, yeah, just keeping up the communication, and kind of like we mentioned, it's hard to over communicate. So just kind of err on the side of over communicating, err on the side of too much, because then it'll probably be right at that sweet spot. And to Monica.
As far as what needed to be or what could have been improved. Communication, you know, same thing that everybody else has been saying. I do feel like I was a little bit noisier this week in Slack, which is cool. I feel like I need to make that a habit. I need to be probably asking something at least once every day, once or twice a day, just so that I'm, you know, staying focused. I feel like I kind of fell off the map the last couple of days because we were working together pretty well, me and Mike, like throughout the week. And then when the weekend came, I was just so beat and exhausted. I was kind of like trying to rest up, but nobody knew that that's what was going on with me because I didn't say anything. So just getting better at saying, hey, I'm going to be resting or doing this so that nobody is waiting on me. Because, you know, I did realize that Nikema and Amber were waiting for a review from me, but because I was so like kind of out of it, I wasn't there to get that done for them. So just making sure that I keep y'all just up to date with everything that's going on with me and just talking more and being even more noisy.
And I didn't add a ticket or a card here. Doesn't mean everything was perfect, but I feel like the trend here is good. So it sort of just want to agree with what a lot of people said here. Just keep sort of moving in the same direction. That's yeah. So more so than anything specific that was wrong. I see a lot of good things. So just keep that going and do even more of the good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think the theme is keep communicating and just put it all out there. But yeah, great work this week. I don't know, Andrew, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, kind of along what Nikima was saying. I wonder if there's a place for, like, it's almost like its own skill to recognize when your work is going to intersect with work somebody else is doing. And there, we've talked about maybe for future cohorts, even doing sort of mob programming at certain points, where there's likely to be a lot of overlap, or there's, a high likelihood of, like merge conflicts and stuff, where trying to get both pairs, like get everybody on a call and just work out a little bit of approach to avoid, some of like stepping on each other's toes, or just like agree on the data structure, or like, certain things. So, like I said, it's a skill you have to build up. So like right now, like it may be kind of on the mentors to recognize when maybe that's the case. But if you're, as a participant, if you're in there, and you're like, what, we're saving a token, and I'm not really sure how they're doing it, raise that in Slack too. Like say, hey everybody, like, what are you going to call this property, or like, just those kinds of things. It's totally fair to just kind of work that stuff out in the channel too. Some of that can be done asynchronously or on a call, whatever, either way. But I don't know if that's maybe one thing we could talk about as something to improve over the next, like the last 2 weeks as we kind of wrap things up, is just trying to cross pair collaboration a little bit more.
One note on the sort of the difference between just sort of feature work and implementing a feature and sort of the cleanup, refactoring, whatever you want to call it. At my company, at least, we try to keep those separate. So if you have, it's very tempting sometimes. You make you fix something, or you add a little feature, and then you see something that, I should have cleaned up that as well. And then you sort of end up deep in a rabbit hole, and maybe you come out and did a lot of cleanup, and then you put a lot of burden on the reviewer then of like, well, what changed? It looks like everything changed. It's sort of two different types of work. So we try and kind of do a separate PR then if you're sort of changing a lot of things, and often those kind of changes require a lot of coordination with others as well. So you'll want to make sure that do that right after that week's changes have been merged in or something, to avoid creating merge conflicts against everyone else. They're sort of very, like, one type of change here is very broad and you change everything, versus something a little more targeted where you just make a little bit of change in one function or one file, and the chance of that stepping on anyone else's toes is very little. So it's something to keep in mind.
Cool. Well, if no one else has anything else, I think that'll bring week 6 to a close.
Do we want to spend a few minutes kind of talking with each pair about the coming week's work, and just kind of talk about approach a little bit? Is that something that would be helpful?
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I think it was great, and I feel like that put us on the right path. So I'm definitely here for that.
Okay. Does everybody have time to do that? I know well, the next cohort, we've actually scheduled these meetings for an hour. I know these are supposedly 45-minute meetings, and I don't think we've hit 45 minutes once. So we just decided to be more realistic for the next group and schedule it to an hour. But if this were an hour meeting, we'd only have 4 minutes left. But we could spend a couple minutes doing that if that's if everybody has the time to do it.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Sure.
I only have 5 minutes after, but maybe they'll better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who are the pairs this week? Who's up? Let's see, it's January 26th. So Amber and Monica and Nikima and Mike are the two pairs. The next stories that are next up, One is about filtering the list. So that's kind of a UI thing where as you type in, it'll narrow the list of items down to ones that sort of match what's been typed in. And the other one is I want an estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time my purchase is recorded in the database. So there's a function that's provided that helps kind of calculate that based on the kind of the data that we have available to us. So it's a matter of like every time that you hit that checkbox to record a purchase, that thing gets recalculated and saved to the DB. So those are the two stories. I don't know who wants to take which one.
I'm fine with either one, but I'm actually kind of leaning more towards 11. I feel like that kind of, and I could be wrong about this, but I feel like it's kind of a continuation on what me and Mike worked on this week, or like kind of, I guess, a different version of that. So I'd like to see what the logic is as far as that goes. I'm interested to see what that is going to look like.
Mm-hmm. Is that okay with everybody else? So it'd be Amber and Monica working on that story?
Cool.
Yeah, works for me.
Okay. Do we want to break off into separate calls, or do we want to just kind of like, can we talk about these things maybe as a big group? We did talk about cross-pair kind of collaboration a little bit more, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be good for both.
Yeah.
Is that right?
For everyone to be here, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about the filtering one. So something we're also going to emphasize with the next cohort is just kind of checking in on the live app that I built that all the stories are kind of based off of, just to kind of get an idea. So maybe I'll screen share real quick and just kind of show you that feature in action.
It's a bit of a luxury that's not always available in real life.
Yeah, that's for sure. But here's the app and this is actually with the actual token. You can see the kinds of things that I buy. Anyway, but the filter is this little field up at the top, and you can, you start typing things, and as you type, it filters the list down or kind of shows what's going on. So you kind of see how that works as you type. Only things that match. So it doesn't have to be like I type in BRE. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the string. It's anywhere in the middle. I'm a little curious how Mr. Oh, bad breath. Okay, so that has the word breath in the title, so that's why it matches. But that's sort of how that works. So. All right, does that make sense? Let's see. So what would be helpful in terms of kind of getting you all started on that one? Or does an approach spring to mind? Like what are your initial thoughts about it?
I guess what challenges did you face when you're building out this component, or when you were building out this story?
Mostly about how to sort of efficiently filter the list, I guess. So, this is another case where we have the user typing something in, right? So we don't want to be making a call to the database each time we type a letter in. So we should be operating on the list in memory. There are, you could probably Google around and find an algorithm that would help you kind of match any part of a string. You could probably find that online, or you could, take on a challenge of trying to figure that part of it out if you want. Probably several different ways you could solve that, to be honest.
Mike, I'm thinking that this is kind of like it's going to be a similar process to how we checked for duplicates.
Yeah.
In that story, so. I don't ever want to say it's going to be easy because it's always like more complicated than it is.
You know.
But it seems like it seems similar to that problem that we've seen before.
Okay.
I always
Just
like to
writing down
joke
notes.
that it's a piece of cake, and that piece ends up being the entire cake.
Now I'm getting hungry.
Any other questions about that one, or do you feel like you are pretty confident about getting started on it?
I think I feel okay getting started with it. I think once we start diving in and figuring out the pieces and what we need to work on is when we're going to start like blasting you with questions and comments.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah, but good start. Thank you.
All right, cool. Sounds good. And then the other one, so as an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time my purchase is recorded in the database. So, so if you look at the issue, there's a gist that's provided with a script that you can use. So this is kind of the, to be honest, this is kind of the secret sauce of the app. It's like it's kind of a weighted algorithm that tries not to adjust too much, but does adjust like fairly quickly to changes in the behavior. So what I mean is, like, if you say you're buying yogurt every week and you do that for a while, but then you start buying it every 2 weeks, like it's gonna, the app will start sort of adjusting and understanding that you actually now you buy yogurt every 2 weeks, and it'll pretty quickly get over to a different number, like a different estimated next purchase. But that's all kind of contained in this this little script. So it takes these these 3 parameters: last estimate, latest interval, and number of purchases. And I think we have all that data saved on an item already, I think. Is that true?
I don't think we have the quantity.
The number of purchases? Oh, okay. So that might be a new thing that we have to start tracking. But given those three pieces of data, it'll make a new estimate of the next time that it thinks that you're going to need the thing. So Monica and Amber, what are you thinking? I know Monica, you just worked on the checkbox that records a purchase. So somewhere in there is probably a good place to start in terms of thinking of where you're going to do the calculation and kind of add it into the data that's being saved, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just figuring out how to tie that function in with creating a new one for this purpose. So I definitely want to just make sure that I'm understanding how to fit everything together before I start breaking stuff. So I want to kind of stick this for a minute and kind of look at and make sure I understand exactly what's being asked.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I am with it. So making sure I have a clear understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a good place to start, I think, is like Steve just pointed out, like we may not have all the data that we need in order to run this function. So if that's true, then probably the first place to start is to figure out how to get that other piece of data being saved to the database.
And should they open up a separate issue for that and make that independent of Yeah,
that's actually a good idea. Is to tackle that as a separate thing, as a first PR, and then you could open a PR for the other bits later, and that makes it easier on the reviewers. Like it's a smaller set of changes to review.
Right. Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't have any questions that jump out now, just because unfortunately I haven't looked at a lot of the work that you guys did this past week to know how to build upon it. So I'm not quite. Once again, it's one of those things where about a day from now I'll have a ton of questions, but nothing's jumping out right now.
Yeah, I think the good news is that the work y'all did last week, where things are built, broken down into small functions that just do a single thing, is going to make this actually easier. where it kind of pays off.
I have a general question.
Mm-hmm.
Since we hadn't like an extra week for those stories, and I'm looking at the number that are left, like do those issues at the end that are like make things look pretty, do those take less time? Or like I guess the question is, are we expected to finish like a week after, or like when are we expected to be finished?
But we can finish at the same time. I think the last 4 issues are all around styling, and so what we could probably do is just combine those. So we just spend a week. The whole group spends a week on styling at the end or something. It'd probably be a way to do it. That way we're still pretty much on track, I think, for getting through all the stories. Because a lot of this, if you think about it, like you apply some styling to something, it's gonna, you probably apply it all across the app too. So it's a little artificial to have it broken up into 4 separate stories anyway.
Makes sense. Cool.
Cool. Feeling ready? Ready for the week?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Don't want to jinx it. No words in that one.
Seems like fun functionality as for a user though. Like it seems like this is gonna make the app a lot more user friendly.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, cool. Well, again, great work, everybody. Thanks, as always, thanks for all the effort you're putting into this. It's really fun to watch you all learn and improve. So have a great rest of your evening, and yeah, we'll see you on Slack.
Alrighty. Night, y'all.
All right. Thanks.
Bye everyone.
See ya.
Yeah.